What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show. It's your boy, Roddy Rod. Now, peep this. The fun is over in Minnesota for the Somalians. You got ICE coming down, raiding, uh, uh, checking to see if they're illegal immigrants, rounding people up who have committed crimes or who shouldn't be here, and finding out about the daycare fraud. Now, since the funding has stopped for the daycares, they're shutting down. And now, in my opinion, they're trying to take this money out of the country, how they've been doing, and quickly get it to Somalia. Now, check this story out and a couple of other clips that I'm going to play for you. And let's just see what these Somalians have been doing in Minnesota with this money. Let's check this out.
We're going to turn our attention back to the Somali fraud investigation. As we've discussed before, authorities have discovered suitcases containing hundreds of millions of dollars in a Minnesota airport. Now, in the meantime, Republicans are working to cut funding for Somali-led organizations with alleged ties to the massive fraud scandal. Now, as the FBI pushes forward with its own investigation, one key question arises. What does accountability even look like in this case moving forward? So joining us now to talk about all of this and more is New York Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. Congresswoman, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Great to be on with you, too. What a crazy time we're seeing here, aren't we?
Absolutely insanity. And I know oversight in the House is looking into these fraud allegations, but I wonder if it's even bigger than we have uncovered thus far. The $700 million in cash going out of the airports there. I have a feeling we are still just scratching the surface.
Yeah, it looks really bad and obviously very alarming to see that this U.S. cash has been legally going through our airports. And of course, there is a requirement of reporting if you're going to carry more than $10,000. There's a reporting requirement, but I think a really interesting part about this is that, isn't it going to be a little suspicious when you start seeing 10,000, 100,000, millions, and now, more, as John reported earlier, more money that goes through JFK, goes through the Minneapolis airport. Something's wrong there. And I think something that's very interesting that we impose on banks is that banks are required under banking law to require and file and keep track of what they call suspicious activity reports. This is something I think we need to do now when we see the large amounts of U.S. cash, and it's always U.S. cash. I mean, you're not going to see, Chinese yen or anything.
See, in my opinion, this is why I think that this stuff goes all the way to the top. Because how is it that they're committing this fraud in Minnesota and then nobody is saying anything about the money that's going through the airports? It's a clip that I'm going to show you later where people seen the money in the suitcases and let them go because they fill out a form. But would nobody not go to a superior and say, look, man, we keep getting a bunch of Somalians coming through here. They got the forms, but I mean, we talking about millions and millions of dollars. Can y'all look into this? Can we find out what's really going on? But I guess not. This is why the Democrats, Tim Walz, Ilhan Omar, and all of those politicians in Minnesota need to be investigated.
Else going through there, and U.S. cash is king, and we need to certainly have this type of cash exchange reported. It's interesting because you see all this illegal immigration we've had over this time. And by the way, most of those Somalis that are in Minnesota probably came through a refugee program, and probably many of them are already legal American citizens. So suspicious activity reports, some kind of accounting for cash, I think would really be helpful. I'm looking at ways that we might be able to do this so that we could actually look at what's going on. Banks are required to do that. Individuals are not. But I'll tell you, if I'm a TSA agent or anyone else and I see this kind of cash going through and that you're able to report the amount of cash going through, that it's happening in plain sight. We're seeing corruption in plain sight. Most of the remittances that go back often go to these foreign countries, and there's substantial portions of their economy, whether it's Guatemala and Mexico and other countries. Their own workers are sending that money back. But this is at a level that is just unprecedented. And
that's exactly right. This should be cause for pause to say, look, something is definitely going on, and y'all got to do something about it. It doesn't make sense for millions and millions of dollars just to come through the airport. Why not just send it, wire it, or whatever? I mean, think about it. It's a reason why they're not wiring the money. They're trying to actually take the funds straight to Somalia.
I really think we need to look into a way to track that and to actually show that we can hold them accountable, and that type of suspicious activity leads to fraud, arrest, and what we're seeing unfold every day in Minnesota, which seems to get worse by the day.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I want to ask about the two most common way illegal aliens, also legal aliens, by the way, legal residents of the United States, but move money out of the country, remittance payment centers, and of course these cash couriers like the ones that we're working out of the Minneapolis airport. Is there any thought in Congress to requiring that a remittance payment business or a cash courier ascertain and make sure that before they move money, the person that they're moving money from out of the United States is a lawful resident or citizen?
Yeah, I think that should be a requirement. And also, they should have some kind of certification that you are a person that we can trust. Our intelligence forces have already vetted that you can be carrying these huge amounts of cash back and forth to other countries. And I don't think those types of laws are in place. And I think that's a really good way to start having accountability and also tracking where this cash leaving the United States is going. And look what it would have led to had we paid attention to this over the last 10 years, and what you reported earlier on $700 million. I mean, that's almost $1 billion going, I think it was 700 million going, through an airport in Minneapolis, not JFK. Amazing, right?
Yeah.
And they should also be looking into say, like, okay, are you getting some type of government assistance? Or because if you are, how are you able to send this much money back? And why are you sending this much money back if you're getting a government assistance? Or if you're getting federal funding for a business? Like, that should automatically trigger something within the system where you get investigated. Like she said, they need to know who you are. You've been properly vetted. Where is this money going? How many times have you done this recently? Why? You need to give so much information that it actually deters these people from even doing this. That's what needs to happen, because it's gotten out of control. We're talking about billions and billions of dollars in fraud. I've heard up to 18 billion. I think it's even more than that, because if somebody just simply have tried to move 700 million through the airport and they've been supposedly committed up to $18 billion worth of fraud, and it's been going on for years, it's definitely past that point. I want to say a couple of 100 billion if they've been doing this for years. And there's so many of them that's committing this fraud, and it's a concerted effort by one group of people. I can't imagine how much money it is. I think whenever we really find out, which I don't think we ever really, really will, but I think the number is just going to be astronomical when it gets to a certain point. Now, in this next clip that I'm going to show y'all, I'm going to show you that they've been reporting on this for a while now. This was a report from 7 years ago. Let's check this out.
It's the morning of March 15th. We're chasing a tip about a man who's leaving the country. Our sources tell us he just took a carry-on bag through security that was packed with $1 million cash. You can do that as long as you fill out one of these government forms. We're told these cloak and dagger-like scenarios now happen almost weekly at MSP International. The money is usually headed to the Middle East, Dubai, and points beyond. Our sources say last year alone, more than $100 million cash left MSP in carry-on luggage.
What we were interested in is where it was going.
The national go-to expert on what's behind these mysterious money transfers is Glenn Kearns. He's a former Seattle police detective who spent 15 years on the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force until his retirement.
It's an outright crime. It's unbelievable.
Kearns tracked millions of dollars in cash that was leaving on flights from Seattle. It was coming from hawalas, businesses used to courier money to countries that have no official banking system. Some immigrant communities rely on hawalas to send funds to help impoverished relatives back home. Kearns discovered some of the money was being funneled to a hawala in a region of Somalia that's controlled by the Al-Shabaab terrorist group.
Boom, right there. Once you get information like that you should immediately be banned from sending money. If you're going to send money, I don't care if your family is in this territory, That territory is El Shabaab territory. That's a red flag. No, you can't do it. You're going to have to send it somewhere else, and they're just going to have to go there and pick it up. But you're definitely not about to send it straight there where Al Shabaab is. That's just not about to happen. But it's been happening.
Could they possibly come up with such big bucks to transfer back home?
We had sources that told us it's all about it's welfare fraud. It's all about the daycare.
To better understand the connection between daycare fraud and the surge in carry-on cash, you have to look at the history of this crime.
5 years ago, the Fox 9 investigators were first to report that daycare fraud was on the rise here in Minnesota. We exposed how some businesses were gaming the system to steal millions in government subsidies meant to help low-income families with their child care expenses.
And like I said earlier in the video, this is from 7 years ago, and they are saying these types of numbers. It's got to be a couple of $100 billion at this point. Has to be.
This is a great way to make some money. I think it's kind of that informal word of mouth.
In order for the scheme to work, the daycare centers need to sign up low-income families that qualify for child care assistance funding. These surveillance videos are from a case prosecuted by Hennepin County. They show parents checking their kids into a center only to leave with them a few minutes later. Sometimes no children would show up. But either way, the center would bill the state for a full day of child care.
Wow. And see on the rest of that video, which they didn't show in that clip, but they actually are getting kickbacks. You see a guy handing a woman an envelope with cash in it. So like I say, everybody knows what's going on in that community. This is the reason why they only want Somalian children to go to these quote unquote daycares. They're actually hiring some of the mothers to work in these daycares that are not working. They taking their kids back out, going out shopping, going out running errands, and the kids are never at this daycare. They don't even have the proper things needed to have a daycare, as far as, you know, a children's playground, somewhere to eat, and all. They don't have the necessities that you would need for a daycare, and they all know this. That's why they don't want no outsiders, nobody involved. So they have a daycare run in their home. So they can, no, we're not accepting no more children. We full. They ain't full. If a Somalian child wants to go there, they got to keep it in-house. That's how they play the game. That's how it's been going on for so long. Because once you start letting outsiders come in to these daycares, and the parents realize, oh, my child is the only child here, or something fishy is going on, let me go ask somebody, let me go talk to somebody, then the whole scheme is ruined. That's why they had a big problem when Nick Shirley kept simply asking, I want to enroll my son in one of these daycares. They were always full, and he needs to get away from here. We're going to call the police. They're running a scam. They've been scamming us for years. It needs to stop. That's why I'm glad ISIS is there to clean this up. They need to be investigated. That's why I'm glad the funding has stopped. They don't need no more funding. And so some of them have shut down because they don't have no money. How you don't have no money within a week's time of Trump shutting down the funding? That's because y'all was never putting money into the business to begin with. You was putting it in your pockets. And you decided, I'm not finna fake, maintain this facility with the money that I got so far. I'm just gonna shut it down. I got it now, I'm good. It is what it is. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this video in the comments. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. And as always, I catch y'all in the next video. Peace.